Roby Price, and welcome to my workshop.
I'm just back from the electronics store. Valerie's got a couple of new cables to keep all that myriad of attachments hooked up and powerful. All those cables are kind of becoming a little bit of a mess. And I had a similar problem in my office, and I cleaned it up with what I call a cable caddy, a place to put all the wall warts, get them out of the way. I think we can do something similar for her. Let's go head up to her office and take a look and see what we got. I'll see you there.
Improvements to the homestead. A plug caddy for the wall warts.
I'm Roby Price, and welcome to Valerie's workshop. This is where she does her work. This is where she conducts business, and this is where she has her hobby. She's got a nice desk laid out here, and a monitor we just put in, so she's got a good, clean, clear viewing area. When she's doing her hobby, which is scrapbooking, she needs to spread out so she can take that monitor and move it aside if she wants to. Everything's pretty well set up. Small, albeit, but well set up. However, with electronics, there's always an issue, and that issue is cords. And although you don't see much here, this is able to move a little bit, but not much. The real issue is over here, because the cords have a tendency to fall to the floor, and they hang from attachments. Come over here and let's take a look. I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I've taken a seat in front of the desk, and you can start to see a little bit of what's going on here. It's not as though it's disorganized, it's just they're power cords. And by their nature, power cords aren't real neat. I have a cord here. This is for the monitor. I have a cord here. This is a USB. I've got a cord here. This one right here is for the lamp. I've got this cord right, that's the same cord. I can't even find them all. I've got this cord over here. That's to power the computer. The other part of the problem is some of these are stringing across the desk, which is taking up desk space. It would be nice if we had them all running underneath and up front. Now, what I did downstairs, I built a desk caddy. All the attachments and all the plugs plugged into a power strip, and it was mounted on the desk. And I unplug one plug, and I can move the desk as a whole. That came in handy when we were pushing equipment and furniture back and forth from the front room to the back room when we were epoxying the floor. But in this case, it would be nice to have one plug come over to this desk. It'll make cleaning up a whole lot easier. You could use a broom. There's no broom to be used here. This is kind of a pain. So let's go down to the shop and see if we can put something together that alleviates this problem and makes Valerie a little happier. This is an old piece of pine that I had in the back, and I'm going to use it as the base. Now, what do I mean by the base? On the side that we want to put this caddy on, there is a box that has a drawer that pulls out. We want to mount in underneath that. So what I will do, I have a mark here. I'm going to cut off here because I don't want this end here. It's a little checked. And I want at least from here to here, that's the distance between the two plates for the drawers. And then I want to overlap about 2 inches. Now, this is a little short, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another plate that overlaps this way. That gives me a little adjustment. We're going to do this first. So take this over to the miter saw, and we'll cut up some pieces, join up a couple of plates, go back upstairs, back up to the house, and give it a check. And from there, I'll be able to tell that I've got enough overlap to put my plate on top to support my components.
Well, as I said before, the board is checked, so we will take at least 2 inches off the end to get some good clear lumber. Yeah, I'd say that was checked. We'll take a few measurements and then size up the rest of the boards for the base.
That we be perfect.
I've pulled an old piece of poplar for the cord caddy. This is the actual piece that you'll see. I've made a mark at 12 3/4. The first cut will split the board, and then I'll flip over the top of the other board to make the last cut. That'll ensure that both are the same length. You've heard me say it before, keep the same side against the fence all the time. That will eliminate errors. Your fingers will tell you when the boards are lined up right. Trust them, they don't lie. The pine boards attach to the desk and they're horizontal. The poplar boards actually make up the caddy, and what I'm setting up here to do is to cut a slot in the poplar board to allow the pine to come through. That's what supports the caddy. This will become more clear as the project proceeds forward. But right now, I've got to center this slot using the pine board as a measure. Now that I have a centered measure, I'll back it off just a touch to give myself some wiggle room to allow the board to fit in without binding. The pine plank is 3/4 of an inch, so I think I'll give myself a full inch for the size of the slot. That should allow me to get through without issue. I like to use a bit to make my corners. That gives me a rounded edge, and when I cut out the whole slot with the jigsaw, it's a great transition. Since this is a little bit larger than most, I'll be using a paddle bit here. You can center the paddle bit a lot easier if you'll lay it flat and then stand the bit up once you've gotten your point on center. Take your time with it. There's no need to be in a hurry.
Pretty good.
Remember not to drill all the way through with your paddle bit. Just get it far enough down so that the tip will go through the board. That'll give you a hole to index your next cut on the other side. That'll prevent blowout and give you a really nice clean hole.
Into place. Fine now.
Again, take it slow. You just want to ease up on it. And by the time you get all the way through, you'll have that little button at the end, and it'll be a nice clean hole. Can't get any better than that. I'd placed some construction lines on this board, and those were to help me get the holes in the right place. Now that they're there, I want another line that actually connects the two holes. This may or may not be exactly where the construction line was, but it's important to bridge the gap between the holes. This will give me a clear marker when I use my jigsaw to make this cut. I like a jigsaw, but it doesn't produce a really good cut. Additionally, my blades are a bit dull. I think it's about time to buy some new ones. Neither here nor there. If you're going to use the jigsaw, make sure that you take some time to sand it smooth. And of course, an oscillating spindle sander is probably the best tool for that. We're positioning the power strip on this plank, and I think I've got him where I want him. We're also going to mark where the screws are going to go. And I'm using a little tool right there with a click. It puts a nice dent right in the wood where it's supposed to be. We're very close to the end of the board, and a screw that isn't pre-drilled could split this. You're well advised to go ahead and pre-drill here. It does two things for you. It does eliminate the split, like I said, but it makes that screw go in so much easier. It's well worth your time. With my vertical flat on my bench, I'll go ahead and take the top plate and place it on top of that. Now you should start to see how this is coming together. I could take a screw and put it in the top, and that might work, but I think a shelf bracket in there would be the best approach. So I've got a measure. I'll go to the table saw now and cut a couple of pieces so we can put them in place.
I've already cut this to width, so now I've got to cut it to length, and it's 3 1/4, I beg your pardon. It's not a big deal here. I mean, make your marks. You don't have to get it perfect. What you do have to do is get them both consistent. So there are 2 of these blocks, and I've made my mark. I'll cut the first one, and I'll flip it over and cut the second one on top so that they're both the same.
I have found that a pencil eraser is about the perfect tool to hold down these pieces, especially the small ones on a crosscut sled.
This will give you a little bit of a visual of what I'm aiming for. Keeping in mind, you got to turn this over because right now it's upside down. And also, it's not resting on these supports. The 2 screws that I put in earlier, that'll bring it up a little bit. I envision these cords coming out of these plugs going through the wood and then into the wall wart or the power supply or the brick that actually sits atop this piece here. And to do that, we're going to take that same 7/8 bit and we're going to drill a hole. We're not going to drill it on the edge here. We're going to come in deeper. Now, well, once we make that hole, we'll go back to the table saw with the dado blade and we'll make a 3/8 inch slot through there, allowing the cord to come through. That'll be enough to let the cord come through, but it will stay in the circle simply because of the friction of the cord wanting to go one way versus the other. And I think that will help us keep organized. That's what I did on my bigger one on the desk. Now, looking at this, it's already looking a little tight, and my hope is that everything will work out fine. But we don't have as much room on the side of that desk as we had behind mine. So I am looking to scale this down a little bit. So next steps, we need to drill these holes. I'm going to go to the drill press. We're going to drill out the holes with that, and then we're going to the table saw after I install the dado blade, and then we will cut the slots.
I have a sacrificial piece of wood underneath. That way I can make the hole all the way through. No need to come through from both sides on this one. There's nothing much interesting about drilling holes.
I've taken the time to make a couple of marks right here. I've tried to give them a 1/16 over on both sides, and I measure this off the blade and not necessarily off the groove. And what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll measure this side up one side there, make a cut, and then come back here and measure there and make a cut. And we will work with this and try to get this centered because this groove isn't quite centered with the blade. We'll see how it goes. Maybe a little bit this side on that one because I know it's out, maybe a pencil hair. That's pretty good. That's real good. I think that will work.
All the major cutting is done, so we will take a little time here with a random orbital sander and get rid of the mill marks.
I could not find my bench dog, so I've got this clamp here with a piece of wood there, and it's going to make it a little more problematic. I've got this router right here with an 1/8 of an inch cord bit, and I can probably get to here on this, but I can get all the way out here, and I can get this done here. I'll turn it around and get the other side. For these edges, I'll put it in the clamp and get those done there. We take this. When you're doing these holes, you got to be a little careful with that. I like to set the router completely inside and center it in the hole. Hold it firmly and make a quick pass. And just turn him off and pick him out. And then you should be in good shape. A lot of sanding to get rid of the burns, but it is what it is. This is how it's going to sit, and I've got that coming in there and this coming in here, and I may round off these corners, I'm not sure yet. But the point is, I don't want things to catch on these edges here, and that's why I've been rounding over these things. But I don't want to round over this edge right here where it stops, because this is the bottom. So I've made a tick there and a tick there, and you can see them. So when I come up, I will stop just shy of that mark. I've got my bottom piece in here, and this is the top piece. I'm going to avoid that right there, and even though I've got a little bit of a rough hole and a bit of chip out here, I'm going to use this anyway. And it'll line up just so. And what I want to do is I want to put a bead of glue here and here, put that in place, clamp it, and then hit it with a couple of brads. These are the blocks that go in here, and I am not going to trim those back because they're tucked up underneath and they won't get to anything, but I am going to put them right there, and I'm going to put some glue on there. I am not going to nail them, but I will take a couple of clamps here and get them in place. Alright, this is the bottom plate, and again, this area right here is a little bit lower than this field over here, and the reason for that is there's a piece of molding right here that we have to accommodate. This will screw into the molding, this will screw into the plate on the other side. This will screw into our cord holder that we just finished building. Now what I'm going to do, I'll take my square right here along this line. That's the line that I've set. I marked that upstairs. We'll get him in place. I'll take a bit of glue. I'll take my piece and put him right there. Now, that glue will help him ooze into place. Get everything good and square. All right, now, with some 1 1/4 inch brads, I'll pop him in place. But I'm not going to trust it with just that. I've got 1 1/4 inch screws. This is going to be on the other side, so you'll never see them, and that's one of the reasons I want to do it on this side right here. This will make sure that it holds itself in place. That'll never come undone. And because Yahoo over there had to turn on, okay, and nothing's seen from the underside. Now we'll probably round over these edges right here and these edges right here so that we don't catch ourselves on our legs.
I'm going to soften these edges with a 1/4 inch round over bit, primarily because these are the surfaces that will be exposed underneath the desk. Should Valerie rub a leg up or a piece of clothing up against this, I don't want it to catch or to scratch. So a little bit of work here will just make it all that much better.
All right, the plate that this sits under is a 3/4 inch piece, so I'm just going to take any piece of old scrap, put it right there, give myself an idea of where it is. And again, I'm always worried about splitting. I want one in the middle. We'll go ahead and make our, okay, there's that. I'll put one right here. Put one right there. You don't need to really measure it. All right, so I've got my spots. Now I want to be below this because I don't want the head of a screw on top of this. I'm going to use flat pan screws, not a tapered head. So I want to make sure that they're below this. Again, because this is where the legs are going to be. Those are the 3 screws that hold this up underneath here. I need 3 more screws that will hold it up here, but this is for the cord holder, not this plate right here. I will do those when I install it. I don't want to do them now because it may shift back and forth a little bit. But for right now, I've got that much room anywhere on here to hit this. So I'll put it pretty much in the middle. And again, I want to drill these out primarily because I don't want to split this wood. Now this pretty much finishes this up with the exception of 3 more holes right there that screw into the underneath side of the desk. And I won't put those in until it's time to actually install this unit. Well, I've got 2 coats of shellac and I have buffed it off, light sand. And looking at the color, it is not quite what I wanted. I was hoping it would go a little bit more amber, more yellow. So we're going to take a walnut-based finish and put it on there because even though it's on the side, this is not the color I want. It doesn't match anything with the piece that it's going on. So we will darken it up a little bit. And we're going to use a gel stain. This stuff settles, so make sure that you give it a good stir. I will tell you now, this is oil-based, so the fumes are something to consider. Right now I'm in a very large open space and gel stain isn't particularly difficult. I'm going to apply it with this shop rag and keep a wet edge. I don't do this very often. If I'd have used cherry, it'd have been a clear finish and it'd have been easy. Sometimes you do better with a higher quality piece of wood than you would otherwise. Now, again, I don't want it to dry until I'm ready to wipe it off. So the whole point is put it on thick. Now, was the shellac coat a waste? No. And you will see why soon, because the shellac will help seal the end grain, and that is important. Because if you don't have the end grain sealed, it will turn darn near black. So give me a little bit of time here. I'm going to start working this into all the various seams. And boy, I have a few, because all these holes, I tell you now, it's already difficult. And I'll get back with you. The finish is dry enough. And I'm up here getting ready to install, and this is, I don't know if you can see this. Let me get this out of the way. Right here, we have a separation. This is a mortise and tenon joint, and very strong. But over the years, this has been separated. I've pulled it together a couple of times. I've never glued it. So now we're going to glue it. I don't want to depend upon this piece to hold it together. I would prefer that this stay put on its own. So we'll start this whole process with a little glue right here. I don't think it'll take much. And we'll try to rub it in and get it as close in as possible. We'll clean this up here with a wet rag. It's got finish on it, so the glue will come off with a little bit of moisture. Now this doesn't substitute for getting glue inside there, but what it does do is it gives me a start. Now I've got a pipe clamp right here, and I will use the leg to hold him in place. Okay. Give that an hour or so to set up, and then we will take the clamp off. But by that time, we'll have our stand in place. This is how this is supposed to go. And it needs to be centered. If it's not centered, it won't fall down where it's supposed to. So we will try this right here. Now this is precarious because of the weight of the drill and being able to get it to engage. Okay. I would suggest getting one and driving it home, and then making sure that this is centered before you continue with the next screws. Okay, before I put anything on, I'm going to do a quick test fit. Alright, that will work.
I'll finish up with the rest of these screws and then we can move on to the next step. Well, I think you get the idea. My pre-drilled holes are ready to receive 3 more screws, and that'll about finish this up. We'll go ahead and skip off to the next scene, primarily due to the same old and a very unruly autofocus.
Alright, that's in good and tight. Alright, now we've just got to get the plugs in place, and that shouldn't take too long. Well, we had a couple of odd angles to get the screws in, but they're all set, and we're pretty stable right here. I've got a power strip underneath with actually a couple of extra plugs. A couple of bricks on top to power the lamp and the monitor. I've even got an extra here to power a Cricut. Don't ask me what that is. Additionally, we have a power brick down here. Now that one is interesting because Valerie has a road job. She'll take this laptop, hit the bricks occasionally, and go make a sales call. Well, that makes it easy. She pulls this brick, she takes these cords off these two little loops, and she runs. When she comes back, she puts it back the same way, and it's easy. This is a good setup. I especially like the holes with these little notches drilled in them. They work really good. I also like the fact that this cord is off the ground. Makes it easy to clean up under, and the Roomba can do its business, and we don't have to watch it. So this has been a good project, and it may be a good one for your desk. It doesn't have to be pretty, because the beauty of this is it's functional. That'll do it for this one, and I hope to see you next time in the workshop.